Hello and welcome to Insight. We are live on Facebook at RGG News and on YouTube at RGG TV. My name is Teye Kitcher, and today I have with me a principled and respectable woman with a good head on her shoulders. That's just part of the description of my guest on Insight today. She is a seasoned professional with many years of experience in the education space. I'm having a sit down today with none other than Dr. Koryoe Anim Wright, a known TV face, mainly on Sunday evenings. Welcome, Doc, to
Thank you so
Insight.
much. And thank you for pronouncing my name so wonderfully.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, as the first female registrar of UPSA, what was your motivation to take up this role?
It's difficult to describe it in terms of motivation, but I've certainly been one not to let an opportunity pass me by. So when the opportunity presented itself, I decided why not apply for the position and just see what happens. And interestingly, the job almost feels like everything I have done up to this point was preparing me for that role.
Great.
Because everything I have done features in some way in the position that I now occupy as registrar.
Wonderful.
So it has been, I think, a wonderful experience. And I really have enjoyed the university community, and I just look forward to what is next. Because, like I said, when the opportunity first presented itself, one of the questions I asked myself was, do I really want to put myself in that position once again? And in thinking about that, I realized one thing, that a challenge is something that I've always encountered throughout my professional career. And if there's something I haven't done, then I'm interested in doing it. Because every opportunity and every job I've done has been a building block, and I've been, to the next thing. So I have a lot of satisfaction in what we've been able to accomplish and what we are still accomplishing. And hopefully when you ask around, everybody here will feel the same way.
I already feel the same way.
Oh, great.
Yes. Now, definitely you have a feeling about being a trailblazer for women in the academia. How do you feel about that?
It's not something I think of often, but it is something that, because we work with students and you interact with students a lot, you can actually tell when somebody says, oh, I really feel like you're a role model for me, I really look up to you. Those statements, for me at least, they mean a lot. I don't think anyone who is considered a trailblazer really sets out to be that way. But the reaction that you get from people who tell you that does give purpose and feel with a sense of fulfillment. So when I hear that from the young ones, it actually does propel me to keep doing what I'm doing, and to see how I can mentor them on this journey. Because when I started, of course, we don't start out knowing everything. And I was lucky enough to have people that I could call and have conversations with when I had challenges, and they were able to guide me. So in the same way, when I'm able to do that for someone, I do feel like I'm giving back and looking forward to what is next for them as well. So. Great.
Now, in every new role, there are challenges.
Yes.
You might have faced some. What are some of the challenges you faced when you took over this position as the registrar at UPSA?
I don't think the challenge was UPSA as much as it is Ghana. I have been to places in Ghana where, when I am seen and there's a gentleman in front of me, the assumption is that I am with the person as his assistant. And it has been unfortunate. So when I came into this role, my biggest thing was hope that I would be one of the people who, along with other women that are taking over these roles, are somehow breaking down those stereotypes that we have in Ghana. I remember going to an event where there were all of us were professionals, and I get there and there's a gentleman before me, and the lady took his information, and then she turned to me and was handing me his badge. I said, what am I supposed to do with this? And she said, it's for him. I said, but why are you giving it to me? He said, I thought you were his secretary. I'm like, this is an event where you've invited a certain category of people to. So why would you assume that I am? So those were the kinds of challenges, I think, not UPSA specific, but Ghana specific. That, of course, because sometimes universities are a microcosm of what the outside world is, you may get a few of those things. Exactly. But I think a lot of women who have reached where they are in their professional careers will tell you that the best revenge, for lack of a better word, is performance.
That's right.
And so in spite of everything that's happening, it is what it is, and you just focus and do your job. And eventually, those who know you begin to realize that where you are is because of what you are able to do, not because somebody put you there as a token.
Sure. We'll get to gender inequality soon. But first of all, I just want to know what your vision for the growth of UPSA is. And we'll talk about the strategies you think you can employ to achieve that.
Anywhere one finds oneself, it's important for people to do things because they want to do it, not because they're being told they have to do it. And I'm normally guided by, I hope I remember these quotes well, those were quotes from Steve Jobs, I think, that plays on the word persuade and influence. So it says a manager is somebody who persuades you to do what you have to do. Yeah. And a leader is someone who inspires you to do what you didn't even think you could do.
That's it.
And then there's another one, I think, from Peter Drucker, that says doing the right things or something, and then leadership is doing things right.
That's right.
And so those two things are my guideposts, that I don't believe in necessarily telling people what to do. I believe that people should be inspired to be their best. Put in policies, put in procedures, put in all those things. But at the end of the day, the only way any place functions properly is when people follow the rules and do what they have to do. And that is how, hopefully, through the Vice Chancellor's leadership, we're all inspired to do what has to be done. So for me, that's where I get my touchstone. When I look at UPSA's growth or any institution's growth, I don't think anybody is going to grow because somebody is hovering over their head telling them, do this, do that, do this. It is the love, the dedication, the desire to do what is right and see a place really flourish that will actually make the difference for all of us. So that's where I think my focus is, in terms of when I'm working with staff members or anyone else, to see how they can be inspired to do what needs to be done, or what vision do they have of the place and how do they want to get it there, and how that all feeds into the larger picture and making that dream a reality, a collective dream, not just my dream.
That's right. I've been told that you were once the Dean of the Center for International Education and Collaboration. Now, that is quite something. And obviously, you learned a lot from there, and you will try to implement some of the things you did there in your new role as the Registrar of UPSA. Have you thought of doing something like that?
Well, the international part of my career started very early. I think I was at Central State in Ohio. When I was in the Center for International Education, I was also in sponsored programs. So at that time, I actually worked on a project with KNUST, where we won a 5-year project with USAID, 500,000. And I worked with Professor Kwame at that time. So my international appreciation, so to speak, started a very long time ago. And I think the word probably now is more even globalization in terms of how we work. So at CIEC, at UPSA, our focus was on trying to find out how we could actually infuse internationalization into everything that is done. So how can we give students experiences that were more global in nature? How could we give faculty members, or augment what the faculty members were teaching? And give it that global perspective, because at the end of the day, that's the world in which we live in today. And the same thing in this role, because policies, procedures, all those things don't work in isolation. They have to work within a framework, and every university has it, whether it's in Ghana, whether it's in the US, whether it's in Russia. We all have these policies and procedures. So the most important thing is to make sure that our policies are equal or standardized in such a way that wherever you go, we would have something comparable to what many of the larger universities do, or the so-called top universities do. Because at the end of the day, we're all educational establishments, and we're all looking to make sure that we provide the best experiences for our students.
Definitely, there are challenges in higher education in this country. I'm a lecturer myself, so I know some of the challenges we face in tertiary educational institutions. Now, in your view, what are some of the most pressing challenges facing higher education in our country today?
There's the caliber of students that are now entering the university. I think students are coming in a bit less prepared.
Can you explain when you say less prepared? What exactly?
I think it could be academic, it could be character. It's a very broad spectrum, you know. I mean, the olden days we would compare ourselves. I went to Brueggel's, and I would compare what I did there to what current students are doing there, and say, guys, you don't even seem to be ready. So there's always been this gap anyway in terms of the education we had to the education that the young ones are having now. But I think it's even more prominent, or the chasm is even more profound because of the different groups of students that may not be equipped with, or some of them are the first time coming to college. We are finding situations in dormitories that we never had before, fights and all sorts of things that there's no research, so I don't want to point to anything specific, but I do know that we have suddenly come across a lot of students who are very unprepared academically, very unprepared emotionally, in terms of adjustment also to university life, and I think that would pose its own set of problems later on for all of us.
But when you look at them academically, I mean, how do you find it?
I mean, I think the gap is there, but maybe the gap has always been there. It's just where we are in life in Ghana and in other countries. You know that these young people today are going to lead us tomorrow. So there's a sense of urgency in how you're looking at them, or how I'm looking at them. Maybe I didn't look at them the same way when I was 35, but now that, you're a few years from retirement and things like that, there's a profound sense of responsibility to make sure that the younger ones are prepared to walk in the shoes of those who came before us. I couldn't fill the shoes of my mother or my father. I mean, they were giants, and I'm sure that I'm not necessarily expecting the others to fill the shoes of their parents. But if their parents were a size 10, let them be a size 9. I mean, these guys are, some of them, a size 5, and that is troubling. And so I think we need to find a way to research what is happening, figure out how to fix it, and then fix it. But right now, I think it could be a crisis later on if we don't look at it more carefully.
I've also been told that you were once president of the African University College of Communications.
Yes.
Your leadership at AUCC led to significant developments, I've been told. For example, you were very instrumental in the introduction of graduate programs.
Yes.
In the infrastructure expansion.
Yeah.
And reaccreditations.
Yeah.
I've just mentioned some.
Yes,
there could be more.
Yes, they are everywhere you go, you build on what is there. So I'm sure that those who came before me built the institution up to a certain point, and somebody who's come after me is also building on what has been done. But yeah, it was a very interesting time. I stayed there. I served as a founding dean of the Sandrino School of Business when I was there. So I had the opportunity and the honor of working with Sam during that process, and Kojo was generous enough to see something in me in terms of leadership and I also served as Vice President for Academic Affairs before I became President of the university. The one thing about my time at AUCC just that was a blessing was the establishment of the Amata Edu Center, a creative writing center. It was an idea that Koryoe had. Amata Edu was approached, she willingly accepted it, and we formed the center, and she was an inspiration to everybody who came into contact with her. And that was a profound experience for me, because not just of her intellect, but because of her understanding, appreciation of worldviews, and her defiance in who she is, and her unshakable belief in that what she is who she is, and anybody who didn't like it could very well exit her home and leave her in peace. That was a wonderful experience for me to see someone and interact with someone like Amata Edu, and it fills you with the possibility that nothing is out of reach. You can do anything you want to do once you are on the right path. So we were able to do a lot. We were able to establish the graduate programs. We were able to establish some linkages with some important universities that allowed us to expand the programs. We were able to do some infrastructure development also. Chrissy Yanka, who was Koryoe's son, was the director of finance when I was there at that time, and we had a great partnership in terms of trying to grow the university. He had a vision, which I also had a vision, and we came together. And I think that time was really an interesting and productive time for AUCC. So I was privileged to have worked there when I did. And my area is communication, so it was really special for me to interact with the students. And I have a lot of plaques and citations from them when I was leaving, because it was a wonderful experience. We did, communication is very creative, so you get to do all sorts of things that you never even thought possible. Have town hall meetings, have conversations about topical issues, and get everybody involved. And we even started some sort of karaoke nights on Thursdays. So it was a wonderful, vibrant community, which I'm sure still exists now, and they probably built even more on it. So it was a wonderful time.
I can see you had a very good time in the university. It's all written on you.
I still have great communication. Some of the students, they are doing wonderful things, and we still keep in touch. So it was a really important time in my life, professionally.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
You are watching Insight live on Facebook at RGG News and on YouTube at RGG TV. You can also follow us on our various social media handles at RGG News. We are here with Dr. Koryoe Anim Wright.
That's me.
A very formidable woman. Let's move on a step further. We have been hearing of gender equality, gender this, gender right. How can universities actively promote gender equality? Because I believe if it is done at this level and from the basic level, people will come to understand what we mean, So how can we create an inclusive environment for female students, since this is an academic establishment, institution? How can that be addressed? How do we create that environment so that females and males will feel that, look, we are all equal. We can work together, we can study together, we can do whatever together once we understand ourselves as being equal and not one being superior.
Yeah. I said earlier that I think universities are a microcosm of the entire world. Yeah. So, we probably would never attain that, wonderful state where everyone is hunky-dory and we are this kumbaya and feeling that we're equal. But what is important is to make sure that there are always women at the table. I am very vocal when I go to a meeting and they're all men. I don't understand why. And I don't understand why, because we are better with different opinions and viewpoints. And so if there's only one opinion or viewpoint being expressed, how are we growing? So whether it's here on campus or anywhere else, I just speak up and say, I don't get it, I don't understand, But we've always had the Old Boys Network, whether it's here in the U.S. or wherever, where it is normal for people to feel comfortable with the people who are most like them. And in the past, it has been men feeling comfortable with other men, and in so doing, relegating women to certain positions that were not indicative of their ability to work. So it diminished who they were as women. I think the most important thing is for all of us to speak up if and when we find ourselves in situations like that. But making sure that women have a seat on the table is important. Maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, I came up with the concept of establishing a women's association on campus, which is called WAWUPSA, and they are doing marvelous things. And it's sometimes the men are threatened. Why you have a women's association? The men don't have an association. What's going on? And it's fine. If you want to start an association, you're welcome to. We just felt like we needed to have an association, and it's not necessarily to have an association for a safe space, but it's an association that recognizes that some of the challenges that women face are different from some of the challenges that men face. And when you have been in an environment where men have been the dominant people, it is normal for there not to be an understanding or an appreciation or even a focus on what women need. So the association allows us to have that conversation, identify what those things are, and then bring it up for discussion and resolution. With also some mentoring that is being done for some of the female students to bring them along. But I think when it comes to making sure that the young women of today are comfortable in expressing who they are, we just need to make sure that we have role models in the universities and outside that speak up without hesitation, because those are important things for them to follow and understand and appreciate. So we try to do that. Those who are females on this campus, those who are professors, those who are directors, try to lead the way so that they understand and appreciate that being strong in your beliefs does not make you less of a woman. And for the men, being stronger in our beliefs should not be threatening. And one should appreciate the fact that we're not trying to be them, we're just trying to be the best we that we can be.
Great. You are watching Insight live on Facebook at RGG News and on YouTube at RGG TV. You can also follow us on our various social media handles at RGG News. We take a short break.
Watch Insights this and every Saturday at 4 p.m. on YouTube at RGG TV and on Facebook at RGG News.
Welcome back to Insight. Now, Dr. Koryoe Anim Wright.
I smile every time you say that name.
Yes, I love the name. I love the name so much. Now, you are a host on GTV.
Yes.
And a host of one of the longest talk show on TV.
Yeah.
That's Talking Point on GTV.
Yeah.
Now, how far has it been for the past 4 years? How is the experience like?
Well, I said earlier that a challenge is always a welcome thing for me. I see everything as opportunity. So I used to be a panelist. Every now and then I'd get a call from the wonderful producer. I think her name is Pearl Kwade. She would call and say, "Oh, mommy, can you host this?" And I said, "Can you?" And I said, "Fine." So one day out of the blue, she called and said, "Oh, the slot is opening for a host." And I'm thinking, what the heck is she thinking? How is that possible? But again, I said, why not? And it has been an interesting, wonderful ride. I think I have had the chance of interviewing, individuals who have taught me something. I've had the opportunity to grow. Believe it or not, I used to be extremely nervous in front of the mic. It's terrible. I always had to fight it. I always had this internal thing. Pearl put me in front of that camera, and every Sunday I just had to act like I was the most confident woman
but you
in
do
Ghana
good, I
at that
must say, because I
time.
watch it every Sunday.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, I do.
Oh, it was terrible in the beginning. I would make mistakes, but I said, listen, do not stop. Just keep going, because you are probably the only one who has realized that you've made a mistake. But it has been a wonderful growth opportunity, because believe it or not, this role required me to do a lot of things, not behind the desk, but in public.
That's it.
And the more I grew with that talking point, the more confident I also grew in terms of public speaking when it came to things with the university, at graduations, convocations, national events, and all those things. So it has been a wonderful side process with this job, in terms of giving me that confidence also that I needed, which I didn't really think I needed, but I obviously did need. But it's been a wonderful experience. Every week I learn something new. Every week we are able to share what is happening, topical issues that are happening, and hopefully give Ghanaians a different way of looking at what has happened throughout the week. It's very difficult because we are the final show on Sunday, so by the time you get to talking point, every show has treated the same topic. In most instances, it's the same topic we treat on Sundays. But the producer, Pearl, myself, and a few other, few good people, we've been able to come up with a way of looking at it a bit differently.
Great.
On Sundays, so that people will feel like, although it's the same topic, they're getting a new perspective or insight into the issue.
Angles.
So hopefully we've been able to achieve that.
I think you've done a good job so
Thank
far.
you.
And let me commend you.
Thank you very much.
You've done so well.
Thank you. I appreciate
Take
it.
it from
Pearl saw
me.
something nobody saw, so kudos to her too for seeing that and giving me the opportunity.
Okay, now let's take a peep into your life.
Okay.
I'm not being inquisitive. I just want to know
Oh,
you,
no,
who
no, no.
is Dr. Koryoe Anim Wright.
Oh,
For example, where did you school? Who were your parents?
yeah.
Where were you born?
I don't think there was a school in Ghana I didn't go to. I went to Garrison Primary, I went to Anne's Preparatory School, I went to Morning Star, I went to New Nation. I mean, we went all over the place. Dad did a lot of moving when we were kids because he worked for the government, so we moved around a lot. So I went to Nordrose Lyceum, I mean everywhere. And then I had my secondary school at the Bray Girls. But it has, my mom was a teacher at Morning Star. And I still meet people who tell me, oh, my goodness, I had your mother in school and she was such a great influence on me. And that's such a touching thing to always hear. Of course, I used to be in one of her classes and I was the one she would knock the head off the hardest. Oh my goodness, I had to tell my dad to move me out of the class because I was never a good student. I was okay. My younger sister was, very, very good, but I was not necessarily a brilliant student. My father was the first black head of the Ghana News Agency, GTNM. And so communication is something that was in my blood, I think. So I could talk a lot. I mean, I would talk and talk and talk. And so I'm glad that I finally did find something that was kind of in communication. And I'm glad he also got a chance to see me on Talking Point before he passed away. Mm-hmm. But I have 5 other siblings, and 4 half siblings. No, the half sibling side, all of them have passed away. I have 1 sibling, half sibling left, and then I have my other siblings. And it's
But where were you born?
I was born in Ghana.
Ghana.
Yeah, I think Rich Hospital, I think.
Where did your father hail from?
Well, Dad, last name, so he is from Odumasi Krobo.
Great.
Yeah, from Odumasi Krobo. And my mom is from Abula in
Where?
Accra.
Abola.
Abula. Mm-hmm.
Cafe.
So, because we don't speak Krobo that much, I always tell people that I'm Ga, but I'm very much my name. My name, you know that I am from Odumasi Krobo, exactly.
Yes.
And so the only reason I don't embrace it is because I don't speak it, and people are always like, "How could you not speak it?" Thank you very much, because I need to get over that hump.
You have to.
But I am a proud Gadangbe. Let's put it that way. I'm a very proud Gadangbe. I wish I could speak Krobo, but I think speaking Ga, and I speak Ga very, very well.
I know.
So that's my story.
I hear also that you are the global president of the Ebri Girls Old Students Association.
Yes.
What is that?
What is that? So, Ebri Girls gave us a lot because, when I talk about the students who are now entering college and they are not as prepared as we would like them to be, I can say for a fact that when I went to Ebri Girls, I probably was not as prepared as I could be. But at that time, Mrs. Isibe, Auntie Joyce, was the headmistress, and she was an amazing person in terms of molding people. And there are so many stories I have of maybe I am doing something and I know what I'm doing is wrong, and she knows what I'm doing is wrong, and somebody would tell her, this is what Koryo is doing, and she would look straight at me with her glassy eyes and say, I know Koryo, I know she wouldn't do something like this. And I knew she knew. I mean, so slowly but surely, I had to shut off those little things I used to do. And so when the opportunity came to serve as the global president for Ebri Girls, I said, I am a product, I'm an example of what that school does and can do for people. And so I jumped at the chance to compete for it. Thankfully, we were successful. And last year we were sworn in, all the executives were sworn in as the first global executives. And our goal is to just make sure that the name Ebri Girls stays strong, that the memories we had there not just fuels us, but allows us to give back in a way that's meaningful, not just for the school, but also for the students who are there now. So those are some of the things that we're doing, working collaboratively with everyone and trying to make every alumni count in this process so that their opinions are heard and that we're able to implement projects that tie us all together.
One of the reasons for this program is that we aim to talk to people who inspire, Ghanaians who inspire, Ghanaians who are achievers, so that the young folk could learn from and try to blaze the same trails that they have. If I'm to ask you, what advice do you have for young professionals seeking to take up leadership positions in the academia? What advice would you give such?
Nothing should stop you. I don't think anything should stop anyone from, once you want to do something, you have to follow that dream. There was a program this afternoon on the campus, and the Vice Chancellor was speaking to the youth, and he was telling them, and he gave them an analogy that everybody has a seat in this world. And if you don't claim your seat, somebody else will claim that seat.
Sure.
So if you really believe your seat is in the academic institution, contributing, do everything you can to make sure you get that seat. Otherwise, somebody else will take it. And you sit back and say, oh, I tried, but I didn't get in, but it is yours. So you do need to come up with the 1, 2, 3s that will allow you to take ownership of what truly belongs to you. You have to be qualified. One of the things he said, you have to make sure you have the expertise, you make sure you have the experience. Once you do all the things that you have to do, you just keep pushing the doors until they open. Because there are people like me, people like Madam Akushika at GBC, there are women in Ghana who are ready to lend a helping hand. So you just need to know that you're not alone and that you should keep pushing, and somebody is going to see what you see and give you that chance to be who you need to be.
Right. So. Now, let's say you are in education, right? There is no foolproof educational system in the world.
No.
We definitely have challenges. What are some of the challenges you have noticed in Ghana's educational system as we have it now?
Are you talking like higher ed, tertiary? Are you talking about preparatory? I don't know.
Talking about the general educational system. I don't want to break it down.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and this is not necessarily my original thought, but things I've heard that I tend to agree with. You know, someone said that education should not be toyed, and that's probably a strong word, but I think it captures what I'm trying to say. It shouldn't be a political statement.
Good.
Because politicians have come into power, or governments have come into power, and education has been something they have wanted to tweak, turn around, and do all sorts of things with. The importance of the education sector in supporting the country, you can go to other countries, they are not changing the education system as often as we are. The continuity isn't there. Things aren't given a chance to germinate or to grow, and then somebody else comes and tries something else. This is not a trial or error. These are people's lives. And so we need to appreciate that, you know, I know we have 10-year documents, all those great things that we have in Ghana, but we need to stop toying with the education sector. We need to leave it a good system. I thought the ones that we grew up with, like secondary school system, I thought that was really one of the best systems. But you know, it's changed. Now we have senior high, junior high, we have all these things. And we're thinking about introducing all sorts of, I think we just need to be consistent. We just need to focus on what is working and just leave all the other political things. Let's be political about everything else, but just leave education alone. Because it's far too important for it to be a political football. That's what.
Now that brings me. You mentioned politics, and so I'll take you to politics before we round up. Now, what's your take on the role of women in politics? Do we have enough women in politics, and what is stopping women from getting engaged in active politics?
I think women are ladies, and sometimes the men just get dirty, and we don't need that. That's the long and short of it. I mean, you have people who are interested in maybe being on a panel to speak about something, but the way sometimes the screaming, the yelling, the unnecessary conversations around things, nobody wants to sully themselves with that. I mean, people look at it sometimes and say, oh, women are not qualified, oh, they are afraid, and it's not that. You know, I personally will extricate myself from a situation that I feel is really...
So you think the political space is too murky or
I don't think
dirty
it's
for
murky.
men, for women?
It's just not a situation or an environment that appreciates efforts that are from the heart. They need you to lie, they need you to cheat, they need to do all those things to succeed, and not everybody is willing to do that. And because the other things we can do and we can focus on and have the impact. I think if politics were true and genuine and wasn't dirty politics, you find a lot of people going into it. But even still, you do have women who are in the political space and doing very well and making their mark there. But I think the majority of women are at the point where everybody wants to make a contribution. And nobody wants to go home and be agitating about something that happened at work. So peace of mind first. Everything else comes later.
So you think the space must be sanitized enough for women to jump on?
You know, sanitize is a big role, but it should be polite. It should be decent, you know, because it can't be, you know, honky-dory. But the insults, the unnecessary, it's very low. The conversations are not edifying. You don't get anything new out of it. You try to push a good agenda forward. Old boys network comes into play and things just don't go. So, you know, it just needs to change and be more respectful of people's contributions and how all of us can put our hands on the wheel and move this country forward.
Great. Well, viewers, we've come to the end of another episode of Insight, a program where we engage people who inspire, achievers, people whose roles in our lives as Ghanaians is monumental. And today we had with us Dr. Koryoe Anim Wright, the registrar of the UPSA.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for
Thank
stopping
you
by. I really
for
appreciated it.
having a sit down with us and for having learned a lot from you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
My name is Teye Kitcher. Bye for now.